It's a challenge. I mean, he just is not Mike DAntoni's type of offensive player. But DAntoni, I do think, is an offensive genius. And he figured out a way to make Chris Paul and James Harden work. I was skeptical at this time last year that those two could fit together. And Chris Paul put up the same numbers he's basically put up his entire career in D'Antoni's system. So I think D'Antoni can figure out a way to make it work. I like that Melo gives him a mid-range game to go with Chris Paul, because other than Chris Paul, they had no mid-range shooters last year. We saw in the clip he's got that post game that they can go to when they want to. They'll have several different schemes probably, because they typically don't feature any type of post score last year, right? But maybe they'll have a scheme where at times they go to Melo down there when Capella's not, near the basket and stuff like that. The thing I like is that Melo has no leverage. Okay, you have to play well here. You have to do as you're told, so to speak, or you're making $2 million a year. They can cut you, get rid of you, cut bait, whatever. So I like that. And they didn't get along, Melo and D'Antoni in New York. But Melo had all the leverage then. D'Antoni had none. Now it's the absolute opposite. D'Antoni has all the leverage, all the juice. Melo has to play nice and fit in. So I think it can work.
Couples that get divorced and then sometimes get remarried, right? There are Pam and Tommy Lee, right? What ends up happening is, like, oh, you're back together and you remember all the things that you liked about the person that caused you to want to marry them to begin with. But then at some point, at some point, you're like, oh, yeah, I remember why we got divorced. So I kind of think that's going to be the case here for the Rockets. I don't think, for the most part, the regular season, it'll be sticky. I don't, because Carmelo Anthony can really score. This is a tremendous team. And look, he said he didn't fit in Oklahoma City because he didn't have time to do so. He had training camp in 82 games. Like, what more time do you actually need? But I do think at some point it's going to come to a head, whether he's making making league minimum or not, because he got bought out by the Atlanta Hawks. At some point, will Carmelo Anthony's ego allow him to watch the Rockets finish a big game with him on the bench and P.J. Tucker in there, right? Like, P.J. Tucker was a really good player at Texas, has been kind of a middling NBA player, but he fits what they want. He can guard a bunch of positions. He's tougher. He's tougher than a $2 steak, and occasionally he hits a corner jump shot.
And what if they get Kent Bazemore? I mean, that's just talk right now. But if they can get him, that's another guy that's going to be playing.
I understand. So the idea is, like, it sounds good, and I do think there'll be times in which he's making shots and he's boys, and I'm sure Chris Paul went to Mike DAntoni, and he's like, look, he's my guy. I'll take care of it. I'll handle it. I can handle Melo. He's my guy. Banana boat forever, right? But the reality is, at some point, we're going to remember why Melo has bounced team to team, and we're especially Mike DAntoni and Melo are going to remember why they got divorced to begin with. That will happen because Carmelo just can't bring it upon himself to watch other people play, because in his heart he knows he's a Hall of Famer. He should be out there. But at this point in his career, the way the NBA is played, I don't know if you can hide two guys who can't guard. You can already hide James Harden not playing defense. Can you hide two guys? I don't think the answer is yes.
Are we also overlooking, I say we universally, but keep talking about, oh, Carmelo could anchor the second unit. He can be that scorer. He can be the guy that they...
He should want to.
But are we overlooking Eric Gordon? Like, that was Eric Gordon's role that was when he got his shots.
I think at this point, Gordon is a higher option. If you had to have first option Harden, second option Chris Paul, Eric Gordon's the third option, and then if you want to throw Capella somewhere in there, like, Melo just has to accept this. He has to realize, look, nobody's going to look down at you. Nobody's going to say, oh, you weren't as great as we thought you were. Nobody's going to say, Melo's not a Hall of Famer. If in your 16th year, you're a role player averaging 12 points a game, on a Western Conference finalist or an NBA champion.
Dude, that sounds really good until you're sitting there okay? And you're supposed to cheer and support your teammates. And Chris Paul and James Harden and Eric Gordon and P.J. Tucker and Clint Capella are out there, and they're sitting down, and you're supposed to be in the huddle, you know, clapping and dapping dudes up. Like, that sounds great, but this is all he's done his whole life.
I get it.
His whole life, at the end of a game, it's been throw it to Melo, and if Melo can win it for us or Melo can lose it for us. And last year was the first time that he wasn't the number one option, and there was some talk about coming off the bench. Like, he should want to come off the bench because he can dominate.
He still would get his points even if he's second.
He'd get more. He'd get way more looks. But the reality, you're talking about a sacrifice of ego that to this point in his life, he has never shown. And look, that doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a human being, especially makes you a guy. And it's one of the things that's made him great. Ultimately, may make him fail in this particular instance.
Some guys have done it. Bill Walton, Bob McAdoo. Now, maybe injuries, you know, with Walton, but still, Ray Allen. You know, now he was in late in games in Miami, but, you know, a lot of guys have done it.
Yes, and a lot of guys, and Allen Iverson could not.
Yeah.
A lot of guys
he could end up going out like
but
AI.
Kobe could never find a 2.0 or a 3.0, and Melo is struggling to find that 2.0.
Right.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.